The Ukrainian Ministry of Defense has announced that the counteroffensive is ready to begin. But just why do we know that conditions are set for Ukrainian success? I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. It's May 29th, 2023. This is your daily Ukraine update. Let's get into it. Okay, first, let's take a look at this news story, right? The commander-in-chief of the Ukrainian Armed Forces dropped a slickly produced propaganda video in which he said it's time to take back what's ours, along with a minute-long cinematic of Ukrainian soldiers repeating a chant and handling various weapons. Ukraine obviously has been talking about this counteroffensive for a long time. They reported that the attack could begin tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, or in a week. This is a really narrow window to give your enemy, but I think this is all part of a larger operation. And let's talk about the situation. So when we look at the overall tactical situation, we can see that, of course, Ukrainian forces have not been idle, right? They may not consider this the counteroffensive proper, but you can see as we advance through the last week, Ukrainian forces have been grinding Russian forces down along the flanks of Bakhmut, pushing them back, clearing out additional freedom of maneuver for at least the Ukrainian forces on the outskirts of Bakhmut continuing to fight. But this is part of a larger, what we call in the military, a shaping operation. And while they claim this isn't part of the counteroffensive, for purposes of planning, as a military officer, we would absolutely consider what they are doing in Bakhmut to be part of the counteroffensive. It would be considered like a first phase. Now, what do they seek to do in this first phase? Well, the answer is twofold. The first is what's called fixing. The Ukrainian forces have fixed many elite Russian units in Bakhmut. They are locked in here because they are in active combat. You may think, okay, withdrawing under fire, that's possible, but you have to remember we're talking thousands of units, and you simply cannot move thousands of units out of direct contact with their enemy. So Russia's forces are in some ways fixed in this fight. And to make matters even worse for Russia, Russia has reassigned a lot of its troops to stabilize this Bakhmut front. What we are looking at is, first off, the Wagner group has been probably attrited down and is out of combat power. They've achieved their objective, the seizure of Bakhmut, and now they are conducting a withdrawal. They're expected to complete their withdrawal by June 5th. Russian sources are indicating that the elements of the Nevsky Volunteer Battalion and the irregular 1st Wolves Sabotage and Reconnaissance Brigade have begun operating along the flanks of the Bakhmut area. Other Ukrainian sources have reported that regular Russian forces are actually replacing Wagner throughout Bakhmut. This would mean probably that it appears that DNR and LNR forces are being reassigned from areas like Avdiivka to Bakhmut to defend the flanks, while you probably have regular Russian forces like the VDV moving from the flanks into Bakhmut. That's what I suspect they are doing. And the idea being that, you want your elite forces to hold this center of defensive gravity. I don't think that's a great call. I think Russia should assume that Bakhmut will not be somewhere Ukraine wants to start a heavy fight. They don't want to go house to house. They need speed and momentum on their side. And to maintain that, it's going to be along the flanks. But the larger principle I want you guys to understand that has happened is that Russian forces have pulled from what we consider their reserve. These are the extra troops that float around behind the lines that exist solely to stabilize bad situations or exploit offensive breakthroughs. you always want to be able to, as a commander, you always want to have resources that you can allocate, right? If 100% of your resources are in the fight, then as a commander, you don't really have much agency left. All your troops are committed. So you want to maintain what's called freedom of maneuver, which is in part the ability to go in different places and make different decisions. So Russia has committed a lot of its reserve troops to stabilizing the Bakhmut situation, both replacing Wagner and stabilizing these flanks that have been kind of collapsing since Ukraine has pivoted back to the offense. Now, as you can see in the combat map, it's really apparent. Russia launched just 19 combat engagements across the entire front line. You can see just a absolutely tiny number of offensive actions. And that indicates that they are running really low on troops that are just spare troops that can conduct offense. Look too at the situation as far as Russian artillery. While there's considerable artillery activity along the south, there is very little happening along this eastern leg of the front. And this isn't an accident. It's because, again, Russia is probably conserving munitions while it prepares for a counteroffensive. It literally can't spare much of this material, or at least believes it can't. And all of this has served to create conditions where wherever Ukraine chooses to launch its next phase, its primary phase of the counteroffensive, Russia isn't going to have anywhere to draw from to stabilize it. The forces they have in the fight are the forces they have in the fight. Now, Russia's certainly spent a lot of time preparing. Their defensive efforts are generally easier than offense. Conscripts with fairly low training can actually be pretty effective in a defensive role. But overall, you should understand that this shaping operation has pretty much achieved its objectives. The best Russian forces are either pinned in place or have been reassigned, or in the case of Wagner, are withdrawing to the rear areas out of the fight. And so in that situation, right, it remains to be seen where Ukraine will launch their second axis of advance. Again, there's a lot of options. The book answer is the south. The terrain favors maneuver warfare. It allows Russian forces to be pushed into the sea, not to a safe haven in Russian sovereign territory. It would split the invasion effort, and it would be in territory that is occupied by a civilian population that's generally considered somewhat more favorable to Ukrainian interests, right? The Donbas region is most classically an area where Russian speakers and Russian passport holders live. So that's the book answer. But remember, Russia also knows the book answer. And so it may have reinforced this area in such a way that Ukraine may say, hey, we're actually going to be better off pushing out and around in Bakhmut or in Crimea or up here in the Svatove line. There's a lot of other options out there for Ukraine to take. And this is sort of the conundrum of being on the defensive, is that when you're on the defensive effort, the enemy, not you, chooses the time and place of the fight. And that is while the defense confers a lot of favorable conditions, letting the enemy choose the where and the when is a really tough advantage to give up. And Russia has, by attriting all of its combat power, Russia has certainly put themselves in that situation. Anyway, guys, if you are interested and you want to support what I do, keep my channel independent, check out combatvetnews.com. Combatvetnews.com is the site I launched when Patreon kicked me off. I have free news stories, all the ones I can't get to here in the daily update. I have all my YouTube videos on here for free, but if you become a member, and only like 1% of the people that view my videos are actually members, if you want to join that elite club, any one of these tiers will get you access to an exclusive room on the Discord and access to the members only content. These are the videos, the analysis of the combat footage that we can't get anywhere else. We've seen a lot of sniper operations in and around Bakhmut in Friday's video. We've also seen how Ukrainian forces, as they withdraw, are leaving behind some surprises for Russian forces moving in to Bakhmut. If you want to check out all that and support what I do, become a member at combatvetnews.com. Thank you guys as always, and thanks to all of the combatvetnews.com members, and I will catch you guys in the next one.